Guys, the title sponsor of my podcast is GoHunt.com Insider, and they're doing a 30-day free trial exclusive for the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners. Go to GoHunt.com/J. Scott and click on the blue free trial button and go through the steps. It only takes a couple of minutes. You will be required to provide a credit card, but you will not be charged until after the free 30 days. You can cancel at any time within the first 30 days to prevent being charged. If you have any questions at all, you can email freetrial@gohunt.com and someone from the GoHunt team will promptly respond. This is your opportunity to see what all the buzz is about and the filtering 2.0 system and the application strategies for the Western hunter. I have known the owners of the Outdoorsmans in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsmans is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J. Scott promo code to receive 10% off any products. That place sounds awesome. The hospitality sounds unreal. The accommodations, I'm curious, like what was it like sleeping arrangements?
So this was a pretty good sized place. I don't know exactly square footage, but again, the three boys, the hunter and his wife, me, and we all had individual rooms. My particular room had two beds in it. It had heating. I used the heating. It was cold at night, real cold.
Like what kind of Fahrenheit temperature would you say it was at night? Like
30s,
what would the low be?
30s.
Okay.
So it was cold. When we got up to Tam's, it was a little bit colder, but it was 30s, and you did get a bit of a breeze, and you're coastal there still, so you're going to get that kind of I guess onshore breeze, and so it was really cool. It was really cool. They had Wi-Fi. The kids loved that. It wasn't the fastest thing in the world, but they could check emails, and these guys are young businessmen, so they're all trying to stay current, even being from home playing. And anything you wanted was available. If you needed snacks or drinks or anything, and then all that was what we're used to. Coke, Diet Coke. I'm not a drinker, but they did not care for their beer. I think these guys were beer snobs. But they had anything you needed. They had available. Televisions. The lodge was adorned with trophies, so it was really nice to walk around and go, that's a copper, a white, and a common springbuck ram. You could physically see it, and after a couple of days of being in there, I think that's what helped me identify animals, was seeing them in the lodge and identifying with what stuff was. Very comfortable, very open. I think we could probably talk for forever too. But the one thing that was really neat in every house or every lodge down there in Africa, there's a barbecue built into the wall in the house that they burn hardwood on and do a barbecue like every Friday night. And if you can envision taking your fireplace and pull it off the ground 2 foot and then put a grill in the middle of your fireplace, that's essentially what it is.
Wow.
Oh, it's awesome. And
amazing.
So
how do they season their meat there?
A lot of olive oil, right? So everything gets a lot of oil. They use a bunch of citrus. I tasted a hint of curry. They were telling me there wasn't much curry in there. And just like we would, but they use a lot of really good reduced wine sauces and things of that nature. This particular group there in Blaukrantz is very English, so it was very English foods like meat and 3 vegetables and a bread. They ate a lot of pumpkin instead of it tasted very much like our sweet potato, but it was a lot of pumpkin, broccoli, cauliflower, green beans. There was never any shortage of food or, hey, man, I just don't like this dish, right? Breakfast was very simple. Toast, cereals, things like that. Lunch was like a heavy breakfast. So you'd get bacon and eggs and waffles and things of that nature. We weren't really eating sandwiches for lunch like we were used to. And the dinners were heavy meats and always had dessert, which is my favorite time of day, right? As soon as you drop,
you've never met a dessert you don't like.
Never. And they would have they call everything, not everything, but they call a lot of things pudding. So there was like bread puddings with vanilla custards and fresh guava pudding that they made there, cakes and brownies, and I don't know how much weight I put on this trip, but I'm telling you, every pound was totally worth it. It was totally worth it.
Oh man, that's awesome. And then so from there you guys went to another place?
Yeah, so from there we drove about 3.5 hours, and we went into an area they referred to as the Karoo. And I just remember hearing and saying that, but I haven't done any research to kind of look up and see what that means. But the topography changes. You go,
So which direction are you driving?
I think we're going north. I
Okay.
think we're going north, and you go from that choked bush veld to more of that plains type environment, which you're used to seeing in African films. And this place we hunted with Tam Safari was the Tam family. They are of Chinese descent. They're several generations South African, but they look Chinese and they sound South African, and they are awesome people. This particular outfit, and they wouldn't mind me saying one way or the other, Blaukrantz family and the Tams family are very close, two different businesses. But what Tams really specialize in is really quality animal in a really, really fancy environment. So when we got to Tams, again, beautiful rooms, fancy showers, chocolates on the bed, robes and slippers, that type of stuff. Very comfortable. They just didn't miss a beat. You know, you never had an empty drink. You were never hungry. You were, you didn't lift a finger, which is not, I'm not real good in that environment, but I learned to get used to it in a hurry. So it was good when we got to Tams. It was more open plains, and we were on that hunt there. The agenda was we were going to hunt a Cape buffalo, and then we were going to dart a black rhino, and then the boys were going to shoot a few things. And the rhino darting thing was kind of, I don't want to say invented, but kind of pioneered from these guys. And going back to that whole thing of if animals don't have value, people aren't going to keep them around. And there's this huge thing about the rhino being poached all over everywhere and it's endangered and all this stuff. Well, most of those rhinos that are there are privately owned. These guys own 40 or 50 rhinos in this huge, vast land. And they need a way to be able to keep them there because they like having the rhinos. They like having rhino reproduction and all that stuff. But at the end,
And what kind of rhino are we talking about here?
there's whites and blacks on the property. We darted a black rhino.
Okay.
I'll give you a quick distinction between the two. So white rhinos are grass eaters, and they get to about 6,000 pounds. The black rhino is a browser, and he gets to about 3,000 pounds. The difference is the white rhino is, I'm going to say, fairly docile, right? Not too dangerous. The black rhino is just double pissed. He woke up mad at the world, and it could arguably be the very most dangerous hunt in all of South Africa is the actually rhino darting. So first day we got there, we had a bunch of rain, and the next morning we were going to hunt Cape buffalo. So we went out, shot the rifles, got ready to go. Oh, and I didn't tell you, the boys were shooting a 25-06, and the gentleman that took me, he's shooting a 375,
Nice.
big gun. And so we got there, we shot the rifles that first morning, and we were off in this Cape buffalo hunt, which we thought would take a couple of days because they just get down in these acacia trees and this nasty stuff, and you got to kind of crawl in there tight and then look them over and hope they don't get you before you get them. And we were really fortunate in the fact that because of all that rain and weather the night before, they kind of were on the outskirts of that brush, and we got to look over a bunch of them from a distance, which is more the hunt that I'm familiar with. Found a really old big bull and decided that was the target, and took most of the day, but we went down in there and got him killed, and it was a fantastic hunt. That dangerous game hunting it didn't really turn me on as the camera guy, right? I think having a gun in your hand would be a lot more alluring than chasing them with a camera. But um, you could just tell that's an animal that's very aggressive if cornered, and it was cool. He shot a beautiful bull.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photo here on Instagram. It's an awesome looking bull.
He's huge, and scoring that stuff and judging those animals, I would say that one of the hardest animals to judge in North America would be like a Rocky Mountain Billy or an antelope. But when I got over there, I'm like, these things all look the same, right? I mean, everything looks the same. And there was all the little minute details that they would look at and could identify a old mature bull versus a not so mature bull. And the top of the head, top of the horn, there's considered the boss, and the measurements are length of the horn and then width of the boss. And if there's hair between those bosses, right and left, typically it's a younger bull. And then, like any horned animals, right, they'll start to broom a little bit. They'll start to kind of wear down a hair, and then they'll just increase in mass. So I don't know how old that bull was, but he said by far the heaviest bull that they've ever killed. And it was neat. We just slipped in there. I don't, none of these I know that bull, or I know, like we'll identify a deer or a sheep or something like that. None of that happens here. It's like, I don't know if I've ever seen that one. He's the one we want.
And how big of a property is this place?
This place is all total, I don't know, but this piece of property one right here is about 30 some square miles.
Okay.
30 some square miles. It's big. One of the other things that they were saying too, if say I don't know, a particular animal, say it's a diker, if his home range is a mile and he's in a 30-mile enclosure, essentially, was he ever in the fence? And I'm like, well, just depends. I watched them dikers run underneath, so I don't think it matters at all. But I think when you get into the dangerous game, they'll actually, like lions and stuff, they'll actually electrify those fences in order to try and discourage them from getting out. But it happens a bunch. So that was the first day we wound up taking that buffalo. It was a fantastic hunt. That film will be up for sure. And then we had a day in between where the boys actually were going to hunt red hartebeest. And on that particular hunt, man, we had just seen everything under the sun, sables and roan, and there's just so, you're kind of blown away by like, man, how do they all coexist so well, right? They just do. You'll see areas that hold impala and areas that hold springbuck and then areas that hold this. And after a while of doing it, you can just kind of identify this is a that spot and that spot. And bring your glasses. You can, in that country there, you can pick it apart. You can really use your binos to your advantage.
Yeah, it looks like in the pictures, looks like there's mesas and mountains and high points and all of that.
This place for sure, very much for sure. And then I think it was the third day there, maybe been the fourth day there, we were going to do the rhino darting. And I said, get me up to speed on this because I've seen it. I watched Jim Shockey do it a few times, and I've seen some others. And the black rhino is endangered, and I'm not sure if the white is, but the black rhino is endangered, and they have between their land, I think they own 6 of them. They have had a little trouble with poaching. People get in there and poached a few rhinos. And, it's for the sell of the horn. There's no way around it. Rhinos are, according to them, really easy to raise. They're not too hard to manage. They're an easy animal to kind of deal with and get numbers up. But we don't want to get them numbers up if we can't do anything with them. Meaning, if I can't afford to have them here and feed them, I'm not interested. So these guys came up when they stopped hunting them. They came up with the rhino darting. So essentially a green hunt. Annually, they will vaccinate, inoculate, kind of find a way to check on these rhinos, whatever the deficiency is in the feed, they can kind of help give them a boost. So they would have a vet fly in, tranquilize them, and do their thing naturally. And they came up with the idea of might as well let a hunter run and do the spot and stalk and the darting and then we'll take a trophy shot, making clear that it's a green hunt. We'll do our inoculation, this and that, and then off we go. Animals essentially unharmed and full of antibiotics or whatever they need. And I was like, okay, sounds cool. And they've got away from letting the hunter shoot a tranquilizer dart. Now he shoots what they call a Vita dart, and the vet um, delivers the tranquilizer. So here's how the hunt goes. And again, arguably, this is the most dangerous hunt in the world. You got to find these black rhinos, and they're not easy to find. We hunted 2/3 of the day in an area that had 3 or 4 of them in there, and we never could find them. I didn't care for that hunt so much because we were covered up with lions, and lions and I don't get along real well, especially when I'm just holding the camera. So we left that property. He got a call from one of the staff members that had seen a black rhino feed off into this area. So we run over there, and we're carrying a 500 nitro double-barreled gun. The professional hunter is, and then we're holding a dart gun that shoots about 30 yards. And we watched this rhino slip into this stuff and get down in a really thick, brushy area. And the professional hunter's like, don't say a word. Matter of fact, he wouldn't let me bring my DSLR because when you turn it on, you can hear the shutter open. And he said, it's too much, we'll get trampled. He'll gore somebody. No tripod, no, just a handy cam. So we slipped down in there, and I don't know how we got in there undetected, but we got about 30 yards.
How many of you?
3 of us. So four of us technically. We had one guy stay back just a little bit because there was too much. So we had the professional hunter, the shooter, the tracker, and I. There was 4 of us, yes. So we slip up in there and lace this little Vita dart through the bush, and this thing jumps up like it's going to kill all of us. He just says, he told us before, don't move. They don't have great eyesight, just don't move. And he kind of looked around and off he went. They get right on the phone, call the helicopter. I mean, they're up in the air in like a minute, right? Within 5 miles or so of wherever we're at. They're up in the air. They identify, they go in, the vet does the tranquilizing. This rhino kind of gets out into an open area, and they go out and kind of lasso the back leg, trip him, and get him down. And I was like, this is crazy, right? To me, it was scary. It was crazy, but it was also exhilarating.
What's the rhino doing?
He's just,
going ballistic?
No. He's doped up. So his head's kind of on his joint to where, he's trying to get it together. I asked him, I said, is this a regular thing for him? And he goes, no. Maybe he gets darted once every year, every 2 years, if it's even him. This is not commonplace for these guys. They don't know the drill. This is just, they're essentially completely wild. So he kind of his head's on a hinge, and they kind of just pull his leg to where he kind of goes on all fours, and he just lays there and rests. And we go over and set up just to kind of take a trophy shot. You kind of get to see, like, that's the thing that sold me, is I was going to go to Africa and I was going to see a live rhino on the ground, and be able to kind of experience that. And that was really cool to me. So we set up, we took trophy shots. I did not post that photo as of yet because people just don't understand it. I want to be able to tell the story via the film before I put it up. Anyway, so we do our thing.
How big was it?
This was about a 2,500 pounder, which is small in relationships to rhinos, but just a giant critter. And you can just see the meat in their eyes. And horn was on. Horn was beautiful. We weren't going to dehorn because of where they were. They didn't really have problems in that area, because the dehorning essentially discourages the poaching, and it's real popular. They can grow that horn about 7 times in their lifespan. Something I didn't know.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, when they're trying to, when they got them in the parks and the areas where they really get poached, they can cut them off. It's not just a one-shot deal. They're going to have to do that again. So let's actually take a quick break here.
PhoneScope is a company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. It is simple to text photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get yours now by using the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope. That's PhoneSkope.com or on Instagram at PhoneScope. Real game calls featuring the elk reel. Real Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy-to-master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle-tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on Earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com.
Anyway, so we set up, we take trophy shots, we do our thing, and we get like 2-3 minutes. He didn't want much more than that because ultimately they're wanting to get this animal back on his feet and comfortable, just as quick as they can. And so we did. So I have film of everything going down, right, from them kind of getting him tripped up to settle him down. He literally just kind of goes down real soft. They lift his head, put it under rocks, what's up, and then he has everybody kind of get up and get back on the vehicles because it's very, very dangerous. Pull the dart, pull the tranquilizer. We give him his shots. The vet gives him his shots of whatever he's getting. And when I finish that film, I will actually have a conversation with that vet and find out exactly what it is and what they're looking for. Then they use like a purple, looks like purple spray paint, but it's like a purple iodine where the dart would go in. Any sort of scuff or injury that he's got on him, they'll give it a little spray. And then there's a big vein in his ear, and they'll inject that wake-up juice on it, and it's like 30 seconds. 30 seconds, and he's ready to go. Matter of fact, we had 2 vehicles and the helicopter. The vehicles, everybody was kind of standing by, and the helicopter was 40 yards, maybe 50 yards total. The vet gave him the shot in his ear, and he was going to go to the helicopter, and he 40 yards, stopped short, and came to the vehicle because it was too dangerous.
Wow.
Like, good night. And he was up, he was coherent, and he was kind of lumbery. He wasn't, it wasn't one of those, oh man, we're in trouble, he's going to gore the truck. He was just kind of lumbery. And
how far are the vehicles from the animal?
Maybe at this point we're probably 30 yards from the Rhino with the vehicles, and then the helicopter's another 40 yards beyond that. So I was able to get some good film, but it was hurried. They didn't, it's kind of one of those, this isn't about a story anymore, right? This is about this animal. Just, sorry, you're not getting, they didn't say that, but it's like, we don't have time to film this, right? Just leave him be, let him get back in there. And
right. So what'd you guys do? Drive off?
Yep. We essentially drove off. We, maybe 10 minutes of kind of shuffling stuff in the vehicles and watching all that stuff. But he was literally up and feeding within, kind of back to where he came from in about 10 minutes. And I was like, that's crazy cool, right? This was really, that was a neat experience. And whatever the dollar amount was, and I don't know what the dollar amount was, but that was enough for that landowner in order to keep continuing to watch over, feed, let those animals breed on his property. So in the big picture of things, that was a great way to do it, because there's really no other way to do it. Like if they wouldn't let them hunt them, they would just essentially have to get rid of them. It doesn't make any sense to just feed them and have to, to take care of them.
Right.
So yeah, that was super neat. And then, we went back to the lodge that night and every meal there is 5-star. Really, really top notch. And they had a big ceremony for the hunter. They brought the family out, and they had a bunch of African ladies and kids singing that Lion King song. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the Ryan walks tonight is how the song went, and it was cool, man. Just a great experience, and they recognized him for two of the big five, being Cape Buffalo and the Rhino. You know, the picture you looked at online there of his Cape Buffalo, they literally had a label printed and put it on a beautiful bottle of wine in a case that was all scrolled, and it was just really, really, really first class all the way around.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Just an amazing experience, I think, to get to see all that stuff and then to get to dart a rhino. Man, what an unbelievable deal.
It was really cool. I would definitely recommend it. This particular guide, our professional hunter that was with us, he's been around tons and tons and tons of dangerous game hunting his whole life, right? He had been around lots of lions and elephants and Cape Buffalo, just a ton of it. And he said this is by far the hardest hunt on him emotionally, physically. He's focused. He says it's the most dangerous. And he said, if a guy thinks this is just a walk in the park, he's fooling himself. So if you ever wanted or had a desire to chase a rhino, I would strongly suggest you go this route, because there is nothing easy about it. Nothing.
Wow. And then did you guys hunt anything else there?
Yeah, we did. I was really fortunate in the fact that my host was being generous and said, hey, I'd like you to be able to do some shooting. You're a hunter too. And I played you don't really need to do that for me, but we were kind of caught up. And so he let me shoot a few call animals, meaning let me shoot them under, he was taking care of the bill. So we shot a couple of springbuck rams, common rams. Springbuck is like the country's animal. That's, springbuck, they're rugby teams, the Springbucks, and they're probably the most prolific, abundant animal in South Africa.
It'd be like the white-tailed deer for America.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just everywhere, and there's lots of variations. So they have common springbucks, they have copper springbucks, blacks, whites. They have a paint, and now they have a king springbuck. And it's just a genetic mutation with pigmentation. So if you have a common breed with a black, maybe that's where the copper comes from, or a black ram and a black ewe almost always throws a black, offspring or whatever. So they've just got it to where there's lots of these variations. That's very much an Africa thing, is to where they've got all these different, something to keep a guy coming back. I mean, if you look at SCI and all those things, it's like this particular zebra comes from this region, which is a different genus than this one, and so a guy's gotta hunt them all. And I think that's part of where that comes from. He's trying to get all the species. But I was able to shoot a couple of those down in Blaukrantz. I did shoot some warthogs. To kind of help out. We actually had a highway issue too, where they needed to take some warthogs off the highway. And then on the very last day, he let me hunt a waterbuck, which is probably my favorite animal all total, just because it's unique. It's about a 400-pound antelope. The horns just kind of swoop back. You could probably see it on Instagram too. And every hair on its body is on its own gland. So it's
a beautiful animal.
It's unbelievable, and the footage is even better. And as soon as you get back, you wish you took more footage. But that hair is long. That hair is like 4.5 or 5 inches long, and it sits on end. And they are very much a water animal.
It looks like an animal that, depending on the angle that you're looking at it, it's gonna be a different color. Meaning,
right.
It looks a little lighter and then darker areas, but it almost looks like, kind of from different, like a turkey.
Absolutely.
When you look at it, there's iridescent, and you kind of look at it from different angles, and copper comes out and kind of aquamarine color, and just different. That's what it looks like on this.
No, and you're 100% right, and that's a great description of it. And because that hair is like on its own like little gland, it's very, very erect, right? So it sticks out. So in having like a pale hide underneath, and then a hair that goes from dark brown to a lighter gray, I always say it's like an old sport flick card, man. Your baseball card, you could kind of twist it, and you get two different kind of sheens and images. It's very much like that. and it's beautiful. It does you don't see in that picture, but on his rump there's a big white outline. They call it the target, and so he's got that kind of that chocolatey body with a big white outline, and just a really neat animal. It's kind of the end of the hunt for all of us. It was the last thing we took, and just a great day. We did shoot a mountain reed buck. We chased a hog deer for a while. They have some hog deer in there from India. They've really, really done well. And but they had shed. A few of them were wearing horns, but it was just kind of, you don't know if you're gonna shoot one, go over there, and there's gonna be two horns laying there. It was too dicey of a time to shoot one. And then we also took a Gems buck there, a really, really, really nice Gems buck. And I think that was
Tell me about this lion photo in
that was on our Rhino stock. So
good night.
oh,
This it looks like you're about 10 yards from this thing.
well, I'm using a pretty good zoom, but we're about 50 yards from that one, and that's where I was just, man,
That's an amazing photo. His eyes are so was he staring you
yeah,
down?
just staring us down. We just walked on by, and that's the part that, man, critters, they don't like me in general, especially big cat. I joke around about it, but it's kind of true. So in Palm Desert, there's like I can't remember what it's called, but it's essentially like a little zoo. Two different occasions in two different places. I've walked around the corner, crowd of people there. I walk around the corner and I look up at a mountain lion and have that thing literally come out and hit the glass, bust his nose, trying to get me. I'm like, that's weird. And I had it happen at Irvine Regional a couple years ago. Same scenario. Cats roaring and trying to crawl through there, getting me. I'm like, what in the world? And we were down at this cheetah park, not too far from Blaukrantz. We go in there, and I got this history with these cats. I walk around, and I don't know what it is about me. We see all these animals. We're with a group of about 30. We show up, and there's two big lions in this enclosure, and we turn around that corner. Those lions saw me and jumped up and roared at me. And I'm like, what in the world? This is all before we go down there with these wild lions running around. I didn't want to look at them. I was never too far from that 500 nitro, man. I don't want to be called a sissy, but I did not like those lions, man. It was crazy.
What was it like for you loving to clean and boil skulls and you're so into that, having all of those animals around? And did they do anything with their skulls differently, or how did all that go down?
They did, and I really, really, I'm still a skull freak, right? And I really wanted to get involved and talk shop and secrets, and I was able to do that at Tam's. The way they do it versus the way I do it is it's the same method. Essentially, they're boiling, but it was crude, and I wanted to be like, man, if you could just get a power washer up in this place, I could show you how to double your production. But they do a good job. Everything that's going to come back here, all 50 some animals that are coming back here, I will have to kind of degrease and redo. But we harvested a lot of little animals too, like an animal called a rock rabbit, or the blacks call it a dussie, and I think the genus name is a hyrex. It's the closest relative to the elephant. It's just a little tiny rock rabbit, and they shoot them. It's just target practice, like us shooting ground squirrels or prairie dogs. And I wanted to save the skulls because it's the coolest little skull. So they said, yeah, you're welcome to do whatever. So those are the few things that I skinned, and they were like, wow, really? You're going to save that? I'm like, yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I saved some monkey skulls. I saved everything that was there. And there was tons and tons of, like, every time you turn around, there'd be a dead head. You'd see like a kudu bull laying there, or a waterbuck head. And I'm like, well, what is that? And they're like, that's just literally just old age, just poor condition. That's it. And I wanted to pick up and keep all that stuff. You can't, but I think all that stuff should be on a wall somewhere for somebody. But but I loved it, and we did talk a little bit with the skull work, and it's just not a that to them. There's the professional hunter, and then there's the guys that do that, and I just wasn't around the guys that do that. But I do have some film of their process. They don't have propane boilers or anything. They just make big fires under these big sinks and put skulls in there, and then guys are just cutting and cleaning and scraping. And they have what looked like an old bathtub full of a whitening or degreasing mix or something like that. And I don't know how many skulls have been in that batch, but it's a lot. So that part was neat for me to see. However, I didn't get to do much of that. And I kept trying to remind myself that I got a job to film.
Yeah, you were there to film. Yeah. So,
but I would have loved to crawl back in there and, just I'm sure there's something I would learn from them. And I'm sure I could tell them a thing or two too. And it just never really had the opportunity.
Like your experience in Africa, is it like a deal that in another time of your life, when you don't have the responsibilities and such that you have now, is it a place that you could see yourself, being there an entire hunting season and just engulfing yourself in it and just like,
completely
helping and doing all the stuff and just loving it?
Completely. Yeah. And it was a place where it was easy to identify with the professional hunters and how we had some common ground there, and how my interest was very much toward the animal. And like I said, kind of the smell and the odors and the glands and all. I kind of wanted, it's just natural hunter instinct. I wanted to see all that and experience. And I asked, I said, can I help these guys gut? Can I help them skin? And they're like, you can, it's not important. But I'm like, I kind of just want to see it, right? These elands have, I don't know how many stomachs, like 3 or 4 stomachs. Our critters don't have a dozen stomachs, right? I just kind of want to crawl in there. I'm not trying to be gross. I'm trying to learn it. And, but I loved helping load the animals and all that stuff. So I could go over if I didn't have the responsibilities now. I would have loved to grown up kind of as an apprentice up there and learn how they do it. They're really, really, really good hunters. And I think they're really good in their environment just because they do so much more of it than us. Like a guy that hunts a lot may get 90 days a year, right? The average guy over there is hunting 200 days a year.
Yeah. What kind of optics did they have?
Most everybody was running Swarovski optics. Yeah. Best of the best. Whether they bought it that way or it was tipped or whatever, but everybody was running EL ranges, right? Because there was always a range deal. In Blaukrantz, you won't shoot much over 100, 150 yards. Tams would not be uncommon for you to shoot 400 yards, especially on springbucks and stuff. Spotting scope, I never saw anybody carry or have one. Shooting sticks were great. The shooting sticks were neat. We took a couple of trigger sticks with us. They had the classic wooden pole African sticks too. I don't know what they're made of, but there's a 3-poled stick. And then one of the gentlemen down there in Blaukrantz had a set of sticks from Denmark that I almost don't know how to describe it. It's like if you took 2 double sticks and you tied them together at the bottom, but the top would open up. You set the front of the rifle and the back of the rifle in, and the further you open it, the lower it goes. Does that make sense? And man, it was, as far as the standing and shooting, it's the most rock solid setup I've ever seen. I took a picture of it in a magazine. I'll have to send it to you. But all that stuff was fascinating. And I just loved the fact that when we spotted an animal and we got out of the truck, they knew the means and methods and things that, like, I would just,
they're killers.
They're just killers. And maybe you and I would get there and we would take a completely different approach. Like, you and I would check the wind, we'd crawl up and over around and back around a canyon. And, they knew how to get in there and get it done. And they're so comfortable around those animals. And each species different. A lot of diker, little tiny deer, little tiny stubhorns. A lot of dikers most dikers get killed at night. To shoot a daytime diker is very rare. So one of the things we had to shoot, we were walking and I had seen a diker female, and I stopped and told him, I zoomed in on the female, and he sets up the sticks and says, shoot the male. I physically can't see the male. I don't know where it is. And he just knew the second we seen that female, that there would be a male right in and around that thing. And I don't know. I just something I wouldn't have known, right? I wouldn't have known. They rut at different times. They breed at different times. They got fawns hit the ground at different times, and I'm just very, very, very impressed all the way around.
That's really cool. It almost seems like after you go through something like that, that's almost like a shock to your system. Then you come back and land and you're back to your regular life. You're kind of looking around like this is totally different. And I just was in yeah, you were in another world, but in essence, it's just 180-degree change from where you're at in Southern Cal right now, where I'm at in Colorado. I imagine you had that feeling.
I did, and it's funny you say that because I called home and was able to get a hold of my wife and the kids every night, but man, I really had to pinch myself. I never thought my work would love that, but I never thought work. I never thought responsibilities. I was so enamored by the whole thing. I was so engulfed into everything that was going on. As the trip goes on, and I actually heard you say it in another podcast, a lot of our hunters kind of started to wear down, harder to get out of bed, all that stuff. The further we got into that hunt, man, I'd be tapping my toes sitting on the back of that truck. Like, are we going? What do we do? The more we did it, the more I wanted it. And I never really kind of hit the wall like it's finally done until we started to travel home. And then I was like, that was awesome.
Yeah, I've got a lot of hunters that have hunted with me, and they continue to text me throughout the year, eat, sleep, and kill, because I mean, it sounds kind of barbaric, but the reality is I love it kind of when you can get into eat, sleep, and kill mode,
Yeah.
where and not necessarily kill,
Hunt mode. Yeah.
but hunt. But I mean, it's the term I use, eat, sleep, and kill, where all you are worrying about is focusing on the hunt and eat, sleep, and kill. I mean, that's all you're doing. And for me, it usually takes about a week, 5 days to really get where I'm just focused and that's what I'm doing and kind of, tune everything else out, and then get in your own rhythm of eat, sleep, and kill. And
Right.
Once you can get in that moment and get that going, it seems like that's when I'm performing at my best. And I think it's hard. I think it's hard for everybody, including myself, when you've got all your other outside influences, family, responsibility, job, work, the whole thing. Um, but man, when you can get in that zone of eat, sleep, and kill, it's
Oh,
awesome.
I can't agree more. And it takes a while. I say it all the time. I talk with people like, hey, how come you don't hunt more in California? And I said, the reason I don't spend the bulk of my time here is because, if I get a call for a problem or anything and I'm 4 or 5 hours from home, I can just drop what I'm doing and come home and deal with it. But if I run to Wyoming, Montana, somewhere else when I'm 20 hours from the house, I really buckle down and start to become effective. And I find a way to deal with those problems here another way. And I block it out and I focus. And that's kind of how this trip went for me. Um, the hardest part for me filming hunts like this is reminding myself that I'm here to film. Because something hits the ground, I'm wanting to help position, I'm wanting to gut it and skin it and help load it, and I just like, oh crud, that's what somebody else does, and it's not my nature to just to sit around and have that done. But the hardest part for me is to kind of remember that because I get so caught up in the moment. And yeah, for this hunt, because I was so far from home, about 3 days, I was laser focused on what we were doing. And you're like a big sponge. You're trying to soak up like all of it, and just trying to get your head around how this ugly, ugly, ugly warthog just eats grass, and he's about the best eating critter on the whole planet, and they're prolific and just all of it, just all of it. It's worth doing. I would tell somebody if you ever have reservations about Africa, it is probably one of the most affordable um, hunts you can do, and it is extremely like I think we were able to harvest a blessed buck, a call blessed buck for $50.
Wow.
Right? Just that's crazy to me. This is crazy.
Wow. That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, tell us about the films, how people can find you, how they can watch the films, and yeah, what's the best way?
So most of it will show up on on YouTube. My YouTube channel is WhiteBone Creations Hunting, and I'm going to actually put together a finished film for the owner, the gentleman that took me and his family, and I'm going to have them look through it and really pick it apart and make sure everything is what they're looking for. And then I'd like to break that film up into shorter films, like 6 individual films, and I'll put them up on YouTube. I'll send a little message, maybe even a trailer through Instagram, which is also WhiteBone Creations, and just say, hey, new film coming. And I think it's going to break down into the Rhino Hunt, the Cape Buffalo Hunt, a bunch of Plains game stuff. I'm going to do a big coverage. We didn't talk about it, but a big coverage on hunting bush pigs up there over bait. It is crazy exciting and entailed and a lot of work. And then I might just do just a storyline on Africa in general for people that were like me and just could take it or leave it with Africa. But if you're looking to do it, it is comfortable environment. It's safe, no shots, no bugs. The times we're there, none of that stuff. And so all the stuff that gives people reservation to go there, I think is a myth. But I'm going to try and tell all those stories. So I would think the soonest we would see something come up would be about this time next week. I'll have the first one done, kind of approved. And I think it will be that Blaukrantz Plains game stuff. And, we got about, because we had 3 shooters or 4 shooters and just 1 camera guy, it's you're probably going to see about 8 hunts on there. So
Awesome. Well, can't wait for it. It's gonna be awesome. I know you do a great job, and just really enjoyed getting to hear all about it. It's a place I've never been. It's a place that I want to go, and I think you painted a pretty good picture. And it's probably going to be hard for you, with the fall right around the corner. You basically just went on a hunt of a lifetime, almost to just re-engage and get back into your fall plans.
sure.
But I'm sure it won't take you long. You'll be right back into it and doing your thing. So,
Yeah.
thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing with us. Love WhiteBone Creations. Love the YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Encourage the listeners to follow you on Instagram. And yeah, until I talk to you next time, buddy, God bless. All right.
Likewise, brother. Thanks for having me on.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks. Bye.